G'day, guys. Might be live on Facebook and YouTube. Please give me the first couple of minutes to just get the live stream set up. In the meantime, throw up any of your comments that were your favourite moments of round two. Another exciting round of footy. Luckily, another winning round for best bets, but it was not all pretty, but I'll discuss the highs and lows of the round. But just throw your comments out there, guys. Let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me, and I'll get underway at the 2-minute mark of this video. Just let me know if the sound's all right, guys. Jimmy Graham, old Dragons and Bulldogs legend, says no upsets. Well, the Eels was a bit of an upset, but we'll get to that in for the round opener. Cheers, DL. Thanks, Dane. Thanks, boys. Comments are coming through. Appreciate it. So let me know your moment of the round. Did anyone get any good multis up? I know a few fell short, the ones that were thinking the Tigers had a chance this afternoon. We'll get to that very shortly. Give me just a few more seconds. I'm just going to share this live into the group. Okay, welcome to the Tripod. We break down the NRL every week, every game from a punting perspective, and this is the round two recap. We're going to look back at the round that was 8 more games of footy. We sunk our teeth into them, had 3 best bets, went 2-1. Very eerily similar week to last week, actually. 2-1, winning bet on the Thursday night, winning bet on the Friday night, didn't touch any of the Saturday games, and then came down to Sunday arvo, relied on the Tigers catching a high line, and it wasn't enough points, and the Tigers kind of give us a sour taste in the mouth to end the round. Once again, fell short on a mixed matchup, which is very disappointing from my end, but I'm going to try and find value every week. In the long run, I've got faith that those plays are going to be worth making and give us a shot. We'll talk about that as we get into the games. We didn't hit a multi as well. To hit a multi, and one of the multis this week was 63-1. You need first of all probably to sweep the best bets that week, and then especially if you're going upsets, you just need some luck to go your way. So we haven't got on the board with any big multis yet, but we just give ourselves a chance. That's what I try to do each week. Okay, let me just work on my graphic there. Hopefully you get the idea there anyway, lads. Bear with me as I try and give you guys graphics, try and interact and do it all live. Okay, so yeah, as I said, 2-1, 4-2 for the season. So 2-1 each of the last 2 weeks. Let's get into the footy action. So let's start talking about the opening game of the round, which was the Eels upsetting the Storm. So that was a great start for me because I did come out and pick the Eels, certainly plus 6.5, which was the best bet, which was 6.5 across the board on Wednesday when I did the pod. Now that line did crunch in. I'm not going to take all the credit for that. There's been a bit of debate across the threads about the ability of the pod to move the markets, but there was also a lot of rain that ended up hammering down on this game that also contributed to that line dropping. I think anytime there's a lot of rain, as we saw in the Bulldogs-Panthers game, it's going to cause the line to drop because the points become more premium. The game is predicted to be lower scoring. And even to give you more insight to do with the rain, I also took the Eels in my mixed matchup to outscore the Warriors. And when I looked at it a little earlier on Wednesday, I saw that there was just as much rain predicted on the Friday night game between Warriors and Knights as there was Parramatta Storm. When it actually unfolded, it was a bloody monsoon over the top of Bankwest Stadium, or Wankbest as we call it. And then the Warriors Knights, which we'll get to in a minute, actually started dry. So that hurt because the Eels pulled the outright upset. And look, I will just say also on the weather that I do think the weather definitely helped us out. I talked about one of the reasons I liked the matchup and I liked the Eels because I believe they could match the Storm in the forwards. You know, the Storm looked great the week before, but they do miss Dale Finucane. They will love having the hectic cheese playing as a middle forward and allowing Harry Grant to steer the ship around from dummy half. So the Storm And you've got to remember they're missing a guy like Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, who was at an Origin level last year, who's moved on. So that forward pack of the Storm that dominated teams last year is a little incomplete. And I think they'll get there. And a guy like Tui Kamikamica had a good game and stuff. But Parramatta matched them. And what the Storm wants to do is spread the ball, play enterprising footy, get early ball out wide to their running halves like Hughes and Munster. They couldn't do that so much in the rain, so it became more of a ball control possession game. Both teams completed pretty well. And, the Eels get the outright upset, which I think surprised some people. At the end of the day, it could have gone either way. A couple of bombs caught by big man Mike Acevo, who just scores tries for fun at Wankbest Stadium. But you've got to say good game by Mitchell Moses. Copped a lot of criticism that he doesn't win the big games, but you couldn't fault him. A couple other guys I want to shout out. Gutho, how many try savers did he have? Dead set, unreal. He's just everywhere. I know he probably isn't heralded as alongside some of the best fullbacks in the comp, but he's so fit and he's just always near the ball. And again, as I say, that game was very close. Could have gone either way. But when you make great plays like Gutho did, like the try saver on Nelson, I think they held someone else up as well. That ends up kind of being the difference in these games. So that was a fantastic win by Parramatta. Again, Papali'i was a great recruit. We'll move to the Friday early game, Warriors-Knights. This was a very tight game, very even. I did say on Wednesday I was leaning towards taking the Knights, but with two key players, Bradman Best and Kurt Mann, questionable. And then in the end, Kurt Mann got ruled out on the day of the game, I think. So I just stayed away from it. And yeah, I would have loved to have obviously taken the Knights in hindsight. But really, it took a try, I think, with about 4 minutes to go to end up, winning that game. It was anybody's game. The rain came in eventually. I think just like the Eels, the Warriors scored 6 points in the first half, but unfortunately scored a couple of late tries and got to exactly 16. For the mixed matchup, we needed them to be under 16 points, so we lost that one by 1 point. But the Knights did have the win, and in an arm wrestle game, I really thought each team had a superstar that made a couple of amazing plays. And I think it was more obvious on the Knights side. I'm talking about Bradman Best. The kid is 19. He has a hand in two of the tries, including the winning try, where they didn't even have an overlap. They just swing it out wide, and just his power, and he's deceptively quick. He just draws defenders into him, which allows him to then either draw and pass or offload for tries, make things happen for his teammates. And on the other side of the equation, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck did the same. I think he had two try assists as well, where there was no overlap, but he just freezes people with his footwork that the defender's worried that is, his man inside doesn't have him covered, gets sucked in, and it leads to a try. So class from a guy like RTS, who's playing his final season of the NRL. And then we look and you kind of pass the baton or pass the torch to a guy like Bradman Best, who could be dominating this league for the next 10 years. So I didn't play the game, but it did go under the total. And the Knights, 2-0, good start for them because they've got a lot of class to come back into this team. Ponga hasn't got back. Blake Green, Fitzgibbon, Edric Lee. There's a fair few players who would be in their strongest side to come back. For the Warriors, I certainly don't take anything away from them. As I said, very tight game, could have gone either way. And I do want to try and find opportunity to get on the Warriors in the next week or two because I do in general, the squad there. Titans, Broncos, this was an interesting game. So this was the Friday night, obviously, the derby game. And the Broncos just totally lost this game in the 10 minutes before halftime. And that just kind of shows it all there, that the NRL is a close competition. It's a salary cap league, and pretty much any team can match any other team for periods. But where the good teams separate themselves from the bad teams is those lapses. And Brisbane just totally went to sleep or shat the bed, however you want to put it, and got steamrolled. As I say, I think it must have been about 10-6 or 8-6 to the Titans, and they've ended up going in 22-6 at halftime. So that really was the difference. And then the best bet that we had on that game, I was prepared to lay the -7.5 with the Titans, and they were up 22-6 at halftime. They also scored the opening try of the second half. It was like a bunch of ex-Broncos scoring tries against them. Fafita obviously got a double. Jared Wallace got in for a try. And so how much? They were up over 20 points in this game. They're up 22 points. We're laying -7.5. Broncos got a couple of late garbage time tries. I was actually sweating it right down to the final whistle because Titans ended up winning by 12, but -7.5. If the Broncos had made one more late line break with tired bodies, with the score out of hand, that could have been a loss. So geez, I don't know if I'd be here tonight if they would have lost that one, because it looked like Titans were going to win by 30. And in the end, Broncos pulled it back. I know some blokes in the group had Titans 1-12. So they were actually happy with that little comeback by the Broncos. But overall, I feel we're on the right side to lay the points with the Titans against the Broncos. They're the superior side. The Titans, can actually make some noise this year, can push for the finals. And what I've said about Brisbane many times is they're going to be feeling the pain of 2020 for years to come. Just because they started well last week against Parramatta and just because they got Kevy now, it's not all fixed. You got to remember, you still don't have Katoni Staggs for a while. You still don't have Haas for a while. You still lost Dave Fafita. Even this week, they lost Reece Walsh in free agency. He's decided he doesn't want to stay at Brisbane, even though they gave him an offer. He's moved to the Warriors. He's going to be the RTS replacement. So it's like, they don't have that prestige or that aura where they can retain all the stars that they want to retain. So these are the kind of things, as well as what Kevy's got to do from a culture point of view and from a pure footy aspect of getting this team playing better footy. You also need star players, and last year was just such a debacle that they're undermanned right now, and they can't match it with the best teams in the comp. And Titans took the game seriously and were way too good. So after a good, first half by the Broncos in round one, it's been pretty dire since then. We'll move to Saturday, Super Saturday, where I didn't have a best bet, but I'll just tell you kind of my takeaways from each of the games. So the Panthers smashed the Bulldogs 28-0. It was kind of one of those games where the Dogs tried to get in and grind it out with the Panthers. I think there was only one try in the first half hour. It was extremely wet. I think, again, this game was at Bankwest Stadium. But ultimately, in a wet game, your forwards are going to need to stand up, and the Panthers have just got these powerful forwards, like look no further than Bill Kickow, but, your Liam Martins, your Isaiah Yeo. And kicking game is so important, and I really thought that Cleary's kicking game outclassed Flano. Cleary was just finding these puddles and just absolutely controlling the game and making the Dogs work it off their line, or even they were putting kicks, 30 or 40-metre kicks in behind the line, and then picking the ball runner up from the Dogs, throwing them in the in goal. So I just thought the Panthers smothered them. It's worth mentioning, I know this stat's been going around for a while, and again, I'll try and keep sharing your guys' comments as well, but no team has ever, for like 112 years, started the first two rounds without conceding a point. So, yeah, the Panthers got a bit lucky in playing the Cows and the Bulldogs, but hey, that's still impressive. It's always the hallmark of a contending team. And last year, when they ran through the league like a buzzsaw, one of the hallmarks of their success was their defense just as much as their attack, which, if you want to talk about attack, that Panthers left edge. They've got Luai, they've got Crichton, they've got Kickout, they've moved To'o over there. It's absolutely scary, that left edge running out. Yeah, even in the pouring rain. One other point, we thought that Trent Barrett was meant to improve the Dogs' attack, but their attack was useless. And again, I can make an excuse and say the rain, but they had plays where they went 4 settlers and then a bomb on the 4th. Like, not even, like, I will blow my mind why a team would ever go for a bomb when it's not the last tackle, but just really throwing nothing at Panthers, and the Panthers pretty much just lapped it up and smoked the Bulldogs. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that of all the matches this season so far where there's been a line of 10 or more, the favourite has covered. So I don't think that trend's going to continue, and we'll talk about the match today where there was a favourite of 10 or more. And I do think usually, typically when you look at a game and you're going to see a double-digit favourite, you're going to say, yeah, of course they'll easily win. And if you'd backed them, all the favourites 13 plus this season, you would have won with, I think, just about every single one where you had a double-digit favourite. But I don't know, just think about, how many people can honestly say they've won money over a whole footy season just backing favourites to win big. I don't think it's as easy as it looks, even though obviously when favourite does get their tail up, it makes you think like there was never any other bet but to back the favourite to win big. But I'm just cautioning that. And I did a mini caution on Wednesday that not every game's going to be easy to predict. And then Thursday night we had the Storm upset by the Eels, and that to this point in time is still the biggest upset of the 2021 season. Move to Manly, who lost to the Rabbitohs 26-12. And if you didn't catch this game, man, the Seagulls, again, could have pulled the upset. You think about how useless Manly was at the SCG in round one, and we all knew that the Rabbitohs didn't start well against the Storm, but we all know what the Rabbitohs are capable of. But once again, it was absolutely pouring rain. It was at Brookvale, and as I said, the rain really hampered the Storm. The rain really hampered the Rabbitohs. They couldn't play their style of enterprising footy that they wanted to. It really played into Manly's hands. But from Manly's point of view, if you were a Manly fan and I was neutral, didn't have a bet on the game, but I was cheering for Manly because I wanted it to be a good game. Man, you'd have to be so frustrated being Manly. The amount of times they dropped the ball, they'd get like a repeat set, drop it on zero. They'd drop the ball, picking it up from dummy half just to throw a pass. They shot themselves in the foot that many times. And they also copped a couple of absolutely awful refereeing calls, I thought. There was one where Cherry Evans plays the ball into the man who's on the mark and the ball bounces forward, and they somehow call penalty against Cherry Evans. But there was a few questionable calls as well, I think. And so just every time you thought Manly was about to get in the game, they either shot himself in the foot or they copped a really rough call, and then the Rabbitohs went down the other end and scored. And even at 10, I think it was 10-6 to the Bunnies, just before half-time, the Bunnies were defending with 10 with a man in the bin for 10. Seagulls didn't score. Bunnies got their man back on and score off a deflected kick after a drop ball on the final play of the half. So instead of the Seagulls going in at halftime down 4, they're suddenly down 10. So that was a real backbreaker for the Seagulls when they did really fight the Rabbitohs tooth and nail. Second half, Seagulls got a score again, pulled the game within 2, really had the momentum. Adam Reynolds was off for HIA, I think, and it was Benji Marshall and Damien Cook. Damien Cook's class and Benji Marshall's just kind of skill that turned the game back. Benji Marshall makes a half break, set up a try, and you'd have to say that Manly let that game slip. So although the final score, again, anyone who kind of laid the points with Rabbitohs comes out victorious, I think they'd admit that they were not confident all of that game. The points looked the plus 8.5 or whatever you could have got on the Eagles, or I know people got over 10 earlier in the week before the rain. You look like you were doing all right, but unfortunately, even though they pulled it within, must have been 12-14, unfortunately, like that bloody... And that's a little-known fact that Damien Cook was a beach sprint champion, but thanks, Blanche, he's commented that there. But yeah, it was the difference. His speed in those kind of muddy conditions over short distances, he ended up getting 1 or 2 tries, try-saving tackles, and making breaks. That was the difference. I saw a bit more from Manly to kind of believe in them, but it's still going to be a tough year. We've said that, and they're not rushing Turbo back, so. Disappointing one for them, because I think people who just look at the game on face value will say they got beat double digits, but they actually were in the fight for that one. It just blew out late. Now, this was a pretty exciting game. Cowboys 18, Dragons 25. Certainly entertaining, but I tell you what, this Cowboys forward pack with no Taumalolo, if you didn't hear the news, he broke his hand at training, and this was after being in all the headlines for getting completely called out by Todd Payton in the press conference last week that he wasn't good enough, basically, and that he expected more. Well, now they're going to have to do it without him altogether because he's out for at least a month, maybe 6 weeks, with the broken hand. And you tell me who in that Cowboys forward pack is going to step up and win games for them and put them in position to win games, because that suddenly, to me, I don't know, off the top of my head, is the least formidable forward pack in the comp. Sorry, Jeff Craner. But that's just how I see it. And the Dragons, a team that has no McInnes, lost Frizzell, still won the forward battle in this one. Guys like Paul Vaughan, Tarek Sims, these boys stepped up. Blake Laurie. So, and Ben Hunt had one of the best games I've ever seen him have running the ball. When Ben Hunt's running the ball, now he's back in the halves. You've got Corey Norman, who made his season debut. Running halves get so much more opportunities in the new rules with the way the games open up. They were the difference. And, it was a back and forth game, but the Dragons got the better of the Cowboys. And it's just like, as I said before, no Taumalolo. And if you can't win at home to the Dragons, how many teams are you going to beat this year? So it's tough signs for the Cowboys. Some people may have thought they could be knocking on the door for the 8, and I know it's only round 2, but it just looks like they've got a long way to go to really compete with the top sides, because Dragons aren't a very good team. The Dragons were too good for them last night. Move to Sunday's games, because I'll talk about it, even though I don't really want to. I'm here to face up for every loss, as well as talk about the wins. So my first note I wrote is like shit happens. And I know that people will say it's excuse making, but the simple fact is when you take a team that's a double-digit underdog, you always know there is that chance. Like no teams get blown out more often than double-digit underdogs. Like if a game goes a bit wrong, it isn't too hard for the favorite to just kind of get on top and steamroll, and we get that kind of that snowball effect and we get big blowouts. So I think a lot of people don't tip the big underdogs or even tip teams catching a lot of points because they're scared. It's embarrassing sometimes when it does go wrong because when you lose, it looks really bad. Whereas if you back a favorite and you tip like a -10.5 and they win, but they don't win -10.5, you say, oh, well, they did win. Or, if they don't win, you say, oh, well, no one could have predicted that. We all thought the favorite would win. But you have to be prepared to take a bet that will make you look silly sometimes. And I'm certainly not going to change my process. As I say every week, I'll look at the games. I'll take the tips that I think present the best value. I'll explain as best as I can the reasons I like it. And then you guys decide, like, if people didn't like the reasoning behind the Tigers tips for the last 2 weeks, then you'd be undefeated back in the pod tips because those are the only ones I've lost. But I stand by it. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I really knew that the Roosters would win that easily. Roosters bloody impressed me today. Like, I watched the Roosters play in round one and just had a field day on that right edge. That Kiri, Manu, Tupanua, and Brett Morris combination on the right with Teddy chiming in as well. I think they had 7 tries on the right last week, and I was willing to put that down to Manly's left edge defense being horrendous. But then they tore the Tigers' left edge defense to shreds today as well. So I think while Tigers were useless and no excuse, they were not good enough today to compete in the game or to cover the line. But I do have to give credit to the Roosters. One of the reasons I wanted to bet against the Roosters this weekend was you got no Boyd Cordner there. Jake Friend went out last week. Angus Crichton is suspended. Victor Radley's not back from his injury yet. Verrills isn't back. There was talk that we're going to blood Sam Walker today. So I felt like the Roosters, a team that we know builds into seasons, may be a little off the mark today. And I was totally got it wrong. And I'm sorry that I get tips wrong, but certainly won't get every game right this year. I just do my best, and I'll call it as I see it. And I know that people are saying in the threads, like, give up on the Tigers and stuff like that. My approach with any team in any season, and this is not season number 7, is you don't give up on anybody. Sometimes the team that nobody wants to touch is the team that gets the best value handicap the following week because nobody's on them. So the bookies actually make the line a lot longer the other way. So look, if you disagree with me and you strongly disagree, I guess you can jump on the Roosters next week, no matter what the line is, or you can back the Knights to beat the Tigers. I think the line's 8.5. I'll reserve my judgment. I wait till Tuesday. I look at who's been named. I try and review all of the previous round, but also deep dive into the next round. And I'll be back at it Wednesday, and I'll try and find as the best value that I can. Any other takeaways from that one? Well, yeah, not giving up on the Tigers, but they were bloody awful today, and I'm sorry about that one, guys, because it did cost us and pulled us back down to 4-2 on best bets. Last one was Sharks Raiders. I've got like a progress score there screenshotted. Sorry, guys, but it did finish 12-10, and it was in the wet. And again, like if you go back to Wednesday, I talked about leaning to the Knights. I didn't play it. I talked about leaning to the Dragons if the line was a little higher. Didn't play that. And I talked about leaning to the Sharks and didn't pull the trigger and get no credit for them. But, especially I'm trying to be a bit more cautious early in the year and take my most solid plays. And I liked the Tigers today more than I liked the Sharks. So that looks silly on me now, but that's the way it goes. Now, in this game, the Raiders were up 12-0. They had all the ball. They were causing, all the pressure on the Sharks. The Sharks hung tough. And once again, and Chris has said it there, once again, goal kicking haunts the Sharks because they scored a try not that far away from the post, missed the conversion. They took a penalty instead of taking an opportunity to score a try. They elected for the penalty, which if you're down 6, you don't take a penalty. But because they were down 8, they did. Pulled the game within 6. Then they scored a try late, had the chance to tie the game, missed the conversion, then come up again and get a penalty near the sideline. And it was like a couple of seconds to go. Chad Townsend steps up again, 0-2 on conversions and misses the sideline penalty as well. And they lose a game where the other team didn't score more tries than them. And that happened quite a few times last year. And that one hurts. And for the Raiders, just a win that we're very accustomed to seeing them pull out, a grinded out win. doing just enough. And I mean, you feel sorry for any kicker, as Memberberry says there, feel sorry for CT. I mean, certainly that hurts. And especially after he went 6 from 6 last week. But it is unfortunate. I mean, Sean Johnson is obviously out, but he's had his kicking woes as well. So I don't know why this seems to just haunt the Sharkies. I don't know if they need to get a better kicking coach in there, but it is a bit of bad luck. But they just couldn't quite ever get themselves in front in this game. And when you leave games in the balance and leave it to chance, then sometimes goal kicking is the difference, and it hurt them on this occasion, even though they were quite brave today. So don't take too much away from the Sharkies, but you always got to try and factor that in. And the Raiders just doing what the Raiders do, grinding out a win. That will do it for the recap, guys. I hope I haven't kind of gone too long. I think probably gone about 5 minutes longer than I intended. But that's my instant rapid reaction to the round. Some good, some positives, and also some negatives to reflect on. I'll just keep trying to do my best. Definitely room for improvement for next week. So thanks for tuning in. Remember that the pod premieres live on YouTube if you want to see it the second that all the plays get released. And I share all my best bets in the first 5 minutes. So I know a lot of people hit me up and say, why would you tip that? Or what were you thinking tipping this? You know, you don't even have to spend long. Just go back and watch or listen to the first 5 minutes of the pod, and at least you get my strongest reasoning behind all my tips. Then you can take it or leave it. But appreciate you guys all tuning in, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Lego.